Well, hello there everyone, my name is Amy, this is The Opinionated Woman, and welcome to Crafty Reads, the series where I craft something and we talk a lot about the last 5 books that I've read. So I'm still working on this purple jumper. I wanted to show you the front panel. Isn't that so pretty? That's all my hand-dyed yarn that was down here that I got from Old Dirt Yarns, and then it's just a color called, I think, eggplant or aubergine or something like that from Charity Double Knit. And yeah, so this is the front panel. I am currently working on the back panel. So that's what we're going to be working on. Let's chat about some books. What you don't see, because I edit it, is how often I get up during these videos to just make sure that the freaking camera is still filming, because I don't want to film this twice. I don't want to. Like, I have to do a whole setup and do my makeup and everything like that. I don't want to get to actually editing and then realize, oh my god, it didn't work. So yeah, I just did that. Let's talk about some books. So the first one that I picked up was The Bookseller at the End of the World by Ruth Shaw. Oh, hiccups. This is a recommendation from my mom. She's great for more unusual book recommendations that I don't usually get from Book Talk, or where I get most of my recommendations from BookTube, to be honest. But this is yet another memoir. If you've been around these parts, you know that I am fully in my memoir game this year. I am really loving them, and this one was no different. So I thought that the main focus of this book would be on Ruth Shaw and her, I think she ends up with 3 bookshops that she has in a little remote part of New Zealand. But actually what we get is a really rich look at her whole life, as well as, like, the chapters are interspersed with tales from the bookshop, and then it'll tell you stories about, like, people who've worked at the bookshop, different people who've come to visit the bookshop, how the bookshop functioned during the lockdown, like stuff like that, which was super interesting. But as well as that, we get a lot to do with her life, and man, this woman has lived a life. Trigger warning for child loss and for SA. But she gets assaulted when she's young, she ends up pregnant, she has to, like, get the baby adopted. So later on in the book we sort of come back into her finding that child, because, like, she wasn't in a position to keep it. She had, like, quite religious parents, and back in those days, you know, being an unwed mother was such a huge big deal. But it really, like, hurt her to her core, and we see a lot of her life where she's spent running away from her feelings. And she has some crazy stories. Like, she works in healthcare at one point. She works on multiple different boats. The one boat that she works on, they literally get boarded by pirates, and they're just like, okay, let's just be, like, really fucking nice to them, and then they won't kill us, which is so insane. Like, it worked so well to the point that she was like, oh, can I take a photo of you with my camera? And they're like, oh yeah, sure, no problem. And then they let them keep the camera, they go back and they vote, off they go. It's absolutely wild. So she has, like, a really crazy life, and, like, has all these different interactions with different men, and it's a lot also about her wanting to be a mother and the different trials and tribulations that came along with that. And then we get her in her later years establishing these 3 bookshops, and she just has such a very honest and quite humorous way of putting things, and it was just the type of memoir that I enjoy. Then I read the Gustav Sonata by Rose Tremain. Now, I read Islands of Mercy by Rose Tremain, and I only liked half of it because it was, like, a part that took us away from the main story that I didn't really enjoy, but I liked her writing. So I was like, you know what, I still want to give her writing a go, maybe from the library or from a charity shop. And this I got for R5 at a charity store, and it was worth so much more than R5. So this book is set in Switzerland, and we're following our main character, Gustav, who is a young boy, and he just lives with his mother. His father was a disgraced policeman who died when he was a baby, so he's never known his father, and he was disgraced for, the mother thinks it's a very bad reason, but, like, I think it's a very good reason. He was helping Jewish people escape into Switzerland during the beginning of the World War, and providing them sanctuary, which is amazing, of course. But Gustav really grows up with, like, this lack of connection with his mother, and this hole left by his father and the fact that his mother won't really talk about it. And then one day when he's about 5, a boy comes to school called Anton, and he is really upset from being separated from his mother, and he's crying, and Gustav takes him under his wing, and that's like the beginnings of like a lifelong friendship between these two men. And Anton's family also take Gustav under their wing. They're a lot more well off than Gustav is. They take him ice skating, they take him on holiday with them. And Anton loves to play the piano for Gustav because that's what he's passionate about. So we get that part of the story. Then we get a look into the past to examine the relationship between Gustav's parents and how that whole marriage came about, and potentially what caused his father's death, which was really nice, like look into some more context that like Gustav is obviously looking for but can't get because his mom won't talk about it. And then we do a time skip into the future where Gustav and Anton are adults. Anton is working as a piano teacher and Gustav is running a hotel that he started himself. And Anton is still very much trying to find his purpose because he really struggles to perform in front of people. And he's always felt that kind of like there's something lacking in his life because he hasn't gained the fame that he wanted to gain. And Gustav is coming to the realization that if you can hear the wind, it is raining like crazy right now. So if you hear whistling and dramatic rain, I apologize. It should be atmospheric for you. And Gustav is like in his 50s and he's realized that he knows nothing about his father. He's realized this is something that is missing in his life. And he goes on a sort of quest to discover more about his father now that he's lost his mother. So it was really well explored, as with I think all of Rose Tremain's novels, or most of Rose Tremain's novels. There is some queer aspects to the story, not very blatant, but just hints at it basically. And her writing is so beautiful. Like I'm really chuffed that I picked this one up. It really gets you invested in Gustav and his emotions, and like his relationship with Anton and the sort of pining feeling he feels for Anton. And yeah, I just really like the way it was executed, and I'm going to give Rose Tremain more goes in the future. Hopefully I can go back to that same charity store because they always have more of her books and they're so cheap. So when I run out of all of the books on my TPR, maybe I'll go grab another one. Then I read another one of my mom's recommendations, and This Is How It Always Is by Laurie Frankel. Now this book is very unique because Laurie Frankel is writing very much from her own experience. So Laurie Frankel is really writing from like a place of knowing in this book, because she has a child that she adopted that came out as trans when she was quite young. And that is what the story is following. We're following this family who have 5 sons, and it's the mother and father. The father is a writer, and he tells his children beautiful like fairy tales that he makes up himself, and he uses parts of like what they're experiencing in life to inspire the stories that he tells them, to sort of like give them a message without blatantly sitting them down and be like this and this, you know, like it like just like a easier way for the child to absorb the story. And their mother is a doctor, and when their youngest is about 5, they come to them and they keep talking about wanting to be a girl when they grow up. And his name is Claude, and he starts, you know, wearing his mom's clothing. He asks for dresses. He goes out to buy a swimming costume with his grandmother, and ends up coming back with a yellow and pink bikini. So his parents kind of don't know what to expect, but at the same time they're trying to be really mindful of bringing this child up in a safe space where she feels that she can be herself. And at quite a young age, she comes to them and says that she no longer wants to be Claude, she wants to be Poppy. And Poppy is a name that her mom, it was her mom's sister's name, and her mom's sister died very young of an illness, cancer, I think. And Poppy has always felt an affinity towards that sister, so that's why she chooses that name. And it's all about the family trying to navigate the best way of dealing with a trans child, and the most delicate way of bringing her up, the ways to keep her safe. Because like, trans children are not getting surgeries or anything like that. The main thing that a trans child will be given is hormone blockers, which are completely reversible. They just basically pause puberty to give the child time to investigate themselves, basically. That's like the whole point of puberty blockers. But the things that you have to worry about at that stage are the social aspects. So like, Poppy can grow out her hair and dress like a girl and you know, live her life as a girl, but her parents are riding that line of, do we tell everyone who she is? Do we like move and she lives stealth? Like, what is the safest and the safest way to live, as well as letting Poppy thrive as just being a little girl, you know? And I think the story is really important, because like, we do get a lot of own voices trans stories, and those are obviously the most important. But I think especially for parents, like my mom is the parent of a trans child, my sibling is trans, so I think for her to read a story like this from a parent's point of view, written by a parent, like even though it's novelized, written by a parent who understands the situation and is very accepting of their child and is just trying to navigate the best way in this like completely uncharted sort of territory for them. I just thought it was really delicately handled, and like, there were some parts where I was like, they're kind of a little bit fixated on the fact that she's a girl with a penis, and that's really like, not like, it doesn't fucking matter. Like, genitalia does not make you the gender that you are, and there are people that they speak to, that they come into contact with, who really like bring them up on that and being like, do you talk about the genitalia of Poppy's friends to their parents? And they're like, no, of course not. And then they're like, well, then why is it an issue with Poppy? And they're like, oh yes, you're right, that's so true. I just thought it was really delicately handled, and it made me cry. And I think it ended in an absolutely delightful way. And if you are interested in like trans rights and seeing a trans story from a completely different perspective, then I highly recommend this book. Then I read The Valley at the Center of the World by Malachy Tallack, and this is nature writing to the nth degree. So I either got this recommended by Jen Campbell or from Mercy's Bookish Musings. I can't remember which one, but it's definitely one of those, because it's that type of book that I always get recommended by those channels. I highly recommend them. I'll put their links below. They're much bigger than me. Obviously, I'm a tiny little channel, so you'll see a lot more good recommendations from them. They've got years and years worth of books, book videos to recommend you. What the fuck am I saying? So this book is based in a valley in Shetland, and Shetland is a tiny Scottish island, and they have a very strong dialect. So some of the dialogue is written in the Shetland dialect, so there is a little glossary of terms at the very beginning in case you aren't sure what's going on. But I highly recommend, if you're going to pick this up, go on TikTok and find the Island Larder. It's a bakery that's in Scotland, and she is, in Shetland, and she has a very thick Shetland accent, and I was really confused by it at first, but I think watching all of her videos and getting used to the way that she speaks aided me in hearing what their speech would sound like, and I think it added like so much to the story. So it follows this very small community living in this valley. Most of them are crofters, so they've got like little farms with with like a herd of sheep on them. So we're following Sandy, who lives in one of the houses, and his wife has just left him, So she's left to go live on the mainland, but he's still renting from her parents, David and Mary, who were their landlords, and they've been living in the valley for years and years. And then we've got Maggie, who dies quite early on in the novel. She's like in her 90s. She'd been there for like most of her life. She'd lived in this little valley in Shetland. And then we're following Alice, who is writing a book about the valley and about the animal life and the history of it and things like that. And she kind of gets fixated on Maggie's life as well, and the fact that she lived there for so long, and wants to sort of incorporate her existence into this book that she's writing. And it's really about the interpersonal relationships between these different people in this really remote area. And the nature writing is absolutely stunning. It's just really rich in lyrical, floral writing. It's really, really lovely. Like, I want to see if this man has any more books in his backlist, because his writing is like absolutely stunning. And it's one of those very quiet, like people-based books. It's not hugely plot-driven. It's mainly people-driven. Something does happen towards the end that is a bit more dramatic that I didn't expect. But hello, Leela. Do you want to say hello? Do you want to say hello to the camera? This is Leela. She is my niece. She's my niece. My hairy niece. Don't lick it. This is my crotchet. This is my crotchet you are licking. Tell them this book was good and they should read it, huh? Yeah, okay. You're a sweet girl, yes. Please don't grab my hand. No, don't grab my hand, because otherwise I'm going to have to stop and I'm going to have to wash it. I'm going to have dog hand. Yeah, okay, sit. Sit. Okay, you stay here. Okay. The last book that I read was The Overlook by Michael Connolly. Michael Connolly is kind of one of my go-to thriller authors. He's like the only like police procedural type of book that I really watch. I mean, that I really read, because I think sometimes police procedurals can be a bit propaganda-y, but Michael Connolly has a main character called Harry Bosch, who's very much kind of works against the system from within kind of thing, and there's a lot about like dirty cops and stuff like that, so it doesn't feel as intensely propaganda-y as a lot of police procedurals. So I thought that this was going to be my first utter Michael Connolly dud when I first started reading it, and luckily I stuck it out. I carried on. I gave him the benefit of the doubt, and he saved it at the end. Thank fuck, because I was like, oh no, this is gonna be bad, and it wasn't. So I was like, thank goodness. So we're following this murder. Like, Harry gets called out to this murder that happens on an overlook in LA. And the guy has been killed execution style. And this is a doctor who works with a lot of radioactive material. And just before he was murdered, he checked into one of the hospitals and stole a bunch of the radioactive material. And that's been, and now that's disappeared. So immediately they start, and they go to his house. They find his wife tied up and everything like that. And that's what the intruders have used as like a bargaining chip, like, go and steal this radioactive material or we will rape and kill your wife, basically. And so they obviously automatically start talking about Middle Eastern terrorist groups. And I was about to be like, no, I'm not going down this fucking Islamophobic line right here, because this is not for me. But I was like, just stick it out, give it a go. The twist, like, because like Harry is not sure about the aspect that the FBI and his department are wanting him to go down when it comes to this case, and he's very fixated on the crime scene photos of his house where his wife has been tied up, and different like small details about that scene that you're not sure why he's fixated on until right at the end, where things wrap up and the twist happens. And obviously I'm not going to tell you what the twist is, but the twist completely subverts it and puts it back on a group that you wouldn't expect this to happen. So like it does an old switcheroo, which I really appreciated, and it ended up not being horribly Islamophobic. It actually ended up playing against that kind of stereotype, which I really appreciated. And that is all. That is all the books that I have to talk to you about this time. Have you read any of these books? And do you intend on reading any of these books? I'd also like to know any book that you've read recently that you think I would like, because I do want to do a video reading books that my subscribers have recommended, and I love getting recommendations from unusual places. So the comment section would be wonderful. If you want more from me, my TikTok and Instagram are down below, along with my Kofi link, which is like a one-time tip jar if you ever want to support my channel. But other than that, like, comment, subscribe, all of that kind of stuff, and I'll check you next time.